Hey, IDS 301. It's Module 5, Video 2. What do I got today? February 12th, 11:32 a.m. Let's get rolling. As I talked about in Module 5.1, this module is all about the maps, right? So let's talk about that. And I'm going to relate some of the information that I've gleaned from you in terms of what I could clarify better and uh, the direction to head on these. And these are always, like I said, helpful for future my future classes. Although I don't know when I'm teaching 301 again, probably in the fall. So let's talk about disciplines versus concentrations versus fields of study, what have you. Um, the maps are set up that you need to, analyze your two disciplines, your two concentrations. And I'm pretty sure that it does say discipline slash concentration. Um, that is because here we consider those to be equal. Um, if we think further into it, there can be some delineations between the two. Um, and this goes into somewhat of a complex explanation, but not really. Um, so I guess it's just a language, to say, you're going to analyze your disciplines, you're going to analyze your concentrations. I think when you sign up for this program, you take on these concentrations, two of them, right? So we call them concentrations, and that's what you're supposed to be analyzing. So disciplines in there because it's kind of an equal term. Because remember, I talk about capitalized disciplines. So concentrations are kind of as a term used within the IDS programs and things. Um, disciplines is the term used universities, higher academics. Uh, we talk about being interdisciplinary. So, I mean, the foundational word is discipline. So you can see there's all these related things that kind of, turn it into this stew of explanation. But and so I don't want anybody to overthink it, You should be using the two things you have, period. Okay. Now, some of those, there are going to be a few maybe that are more like concentrations and fields of study than they are about disciplines. Well, what's the difference? Well, it it comes about in terms of the evolution of disciplines, evolutions of fields of study. Okay, and as we move through the 20th century and now into the 21st, starting in probably the 60s, maybe 70s, there's a move towards integrative fields. Okay. Um, there's evolutionary biology or astrobiology there, and then we get into the studies kind of disciplines, women's studies, gender studies, and we get into geographical studies, Asian studies, African studies, American studies, European studies. These became integrated fields of study. For example, you take European studies, you're going to learn about the history of Europe, maybe art of or Europe, literature of Europe, those kind of things. So it encompasses it all becomes this big integrative, like I said, integrate. It it becomes what we are doing, right? What we are acknowledging that 21st century academics, problem solving, complex issues require a multidisciplinary integration, which is then interdisciplinary. Okay. So don't overthink it. We do say narrow down business because it's just real huge and broad. We do say not narrow down, choose one of the kind of avenues to take for foreign language if you have a foreign language. But other than that, everything else should be good. You should be able to use what you have. Unless, of course, it's organizational leadership, interdisciplinary studies, where you have only that one, then just choose something else that you are interested in and map that. Okay. Um, if you feel you have a concentration that is not a discipline, I mean, we're really splitting hairs there, okay? Um, you're still going to find stuff on it, okay? You're going to find a lot of concepts, a lot of theory, a lot of terminology, definition of the subject matter, things like that. You may then, the only thing you really have trouble with in some places, very rarely, would be maybe to find journals and academic associations, okay, for kind of some fields of study and that might appear as concentrations. I don't think, I've never run across any though. I've never run across any, all right, that you can't find academic associations or professional associations or any of that, okay, concepts, theories. Uh, if you have trouble with subfields because your concentration seems like it's a subfield already, then because I know subfield makes us think of a hierarchy, right? We have field, subfield. I would like to say field in the middle, and subfields are around it. There's no real hierarchy. So that should open things up to you. It's not has to be something that's just found beneath yours, but in its realm, in its orbit. Okay. All right. I want you to use your own head to determine these things. And similarly, you'll have topics that are, or concentration disciplines that you think are really broad, and you're most likely right. Okay. Communication is broad, right? Not as broad as business, though. Okay. And other things. Don't narrow them down, because you just use whatever you're going to narrow it down to as one of the subfields, and you're fine. But some are going to say, wow, there's just so much about this discipline. How do I know what to use? There's so much. Well, this is where it's kind of like training for 302 and beyond. You get to decide. You articulate the parameters. You don't sit and wait for me to say, this is your, left side, your right side, top, bottom. You got to stay in the middle of this box. Remember, we're interdisciplinary as it is. We can color outside the lines. So you get to decide if you're going to use, communication, and then if you're going to get more into interpersonal communication or nonverbal communication. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to go with that too. Okay. You get to decide where your parameters are. All right. And I think that's an exciting thing to do. Um, let's talk about academic rigor. All right, let's make that Easter egg number one: academic rigor. When you're using sources, and you're citing sources that back up your work, that support it. Okay, it's a must. You have to do that, because if you don't do that, then basically what you're saying is that I'm just going to regurgitate everything I know about this discipline, and that's what I'm going to submit. Well, that's not the point of this exercise. The point is not to come into college and say, I know it all already. I'm just going to show you what I know, and then you're going to give me a degree. No, we want you to learn something, okay? To apply what you already have, use that as experiential towards how you're going to learn more. Use all this information, all these tools and resources to explore further your disciplines. Now, of course, you are not in this class learning about communication, learning about gender studies, learning about business, right? You have class requirements for that on the outside. You are learning in 301, 302 about being interdisciplinary, about being integrative, about probably, in my opinion, what I like to think, being a better thinker and a better consumer of knowledge. This gives you, in my opinion, a step up over others who are boxed in by these parameters of psychology, and that's it. Where you could say psychology, but I understand there's process of integration to get psychology and economics together, and deal with how each of them affect the other, and how they affect and impact the phenomena that we are analyzing. So academic rigor is very important. And what we're going to do then is, I want you to, the easiest thing I could say, instead of just saying find peer-reviewed primary research sources, which kind of seems like goes over a lot of people's heads, and I understand that. So on a very specific point, I say use academic journals. Academic journals are the best place because they will be inherently peer reviewed. All right, we talked about what it means to be peer reviewed. Somebody writes a research paper or paper, submits it to their field's journal, one of their journals. That journal will have a committee of reviewers who review the paper for accuracy, retesting, some whatever needs to be done, and they will come together and decide whether to approve that paper, and then that gets published. So it's about being accountable to your peers and experts in your field. Okay, so we're using peer-reviewed journals, academic journals. To find those, you can find those through ASU's library site. But you might run into trouble. And so before I didn't want to open the floodgates right away because there are a lot of things you should not use. But let's go ahead and talk about searching an ASU library. Um, I know you all are good with search terminology. I think you are. Probably not as good as me. I'm just totally joking. I'm an old man who doesn't know the internet. Uh, but I've been searching on the internet for years and years, so I think that I kind of get it in terms of that. I'm skilled in that area, and I think you are too, because I think you grew up with it. I think you know it. I'm highly confident that you know how to do search terminology. So if you're not finding things, say, because you're going to ASU library, you type something in that you want. When it comes up, it should say filter results on the side, some type of filtering. You filter it for full text online and peer reviewed. Boom, you got your sources. Now, if you're still having trouble there, yes, then you can. And I'm going to explain to you, go to Google. Go to Google, search for what you want to search for, okay? Concepts in women and gender studies or something like that. And you'll come up with a whole list of stuff. Theories, okay? Theories of geography, something, okay? You'll come up with a whole bunch of stuff. Don't want you to use it right away. I want you to look at it and be discerning because what you'll find is a lot of terminology, a lot of information. I'm not saying websites. You'll find a lot of information in a lot of different places that will probably help you with most all of the 8 criteria. Okay. Pick and choose wisely and take some of that and take it over to the ASU library or look for it in a journal. Don't settle on Wikipedia. Do not use a dictionary like Merriam-Webster. Do not use Wikipedia. Do not use Investopedia. Do not use newspapers. Okay, stay away from those whenever possible, and you will be demonstrating academic rigor. Now, if you have more issues, you can do this too. Go to Google and type in journals of English. You will come up with a top list right away of all kinds of journals that have to do with English, your discipline. Be discerning, okay? Don't just grab, the one that's published in India just because it's the first one. Grab something that's pertinent to where you're going with this. Look at where it is. If it's that particular website for that, okay, great. If it's a publisher website like Harvard Press, Sage Press journals, great. Be careful that you're not getting into the .coms that are commercial, that are selling advertising to get revenue, that have a bias inherent. Okay. Stay away from the dictionary and this other stuff. Why? Because that's for everybody else. That's for the people not in your field. You are inside now. You got inside, you got accepted. When you graduate, Dr. Crow is going to say how, you're now part of the academia, part of the world of scholars and all kinds of things, and it's going to make you feel good. And we don't use a dictionary then, we use it for other stuff. But if we're going to define our field, we step up our game to a higher level, okay? You could probably look up interdisciplinary studies in the dictionary, and I have no idea what you'll find. I don't want you to learn what that is from there. I don't want you to use the dictionary to define even though it's inherent, define dictionary. No, don't do that. Step up your game, be on the inside now, okay? So that's how I look at those things, to use those things, to utilize the ASU library, because doesn't you're not going to run into paywalls and things. But yes, you can utilize Google, but you have to be careful. All right. Yes, if you're going to use in this paper 10 sources and one of them happens to be the New York Times, that's fine. You ratioed that thing 10 to 1, 9 to 1, that's great. Okay. Because depending on what you're doing. But for the most part, you really don't need those things. You do not cite the text. You do not cite the text. The text is for this class. It's just it's a lazy source. It's a cheap source. I already know you have it and be reading it. I want you to expand your knowledge base and not just fall on things that, you know. And where do you find some of the things, some of the concepts, terms, theories like that? Textbooks. If you've taken some of your classes for these concentrations, just open one up and look at the table of contents and you'll find so much about it, right? So expand your mind. Don't just look at the sample and say, I just got to copy that and fill in my stuff. Use your mind. I want to see original thought, okay? And that's the problem I have with samples, is that people just use it as a template. It's not a template. It's a sample, okay? There's plenty of ways to do it. There are 8 criteria for maps, yes, okay? What I'd like to see, I noticed that the sample did not get into the subfields too much. Guess what? Nobody else can get into subfields because of that. I would like the subfields to be introduced in such a way. That's thorough academic rigor, and I'm going to change that going forward. It's too late for me to change it now, but I noticed it. I notice how much people tend to use the samples as a very strict guide, and oh, this is what he wants. This is what it looks like. I've said it every video. I think they're not perfect. They all have issues, whether it's in the formatting, the sources, everything. Okay. Don't expect grad school work in an undergrad class, but I do want you to use your own head, use your mind. Okay. Expand. Don't just fall back. If you continue to always fall back on what others did to keep your path nice and safe, you're not risking anything. And if you're not risking anything, you're not advancing. You're not doing anything. I just read a quote by Muhammad Ali about if you're not taking risks, and why can't I remember it? Okay, anyways. All right, so let's talk about then, you know, that's what you're using for sources and everything. And I'm going to jump to the content. Obviously is important. Again, the content's important. Okay. If the sample's 2 pages, oh, you only want 2 pages. No, give me what you want. All right. You are mapping your disciplines, your concentrations here, identifying things, concepts. Oh, I was going to bold the concepts, but that's not bold. Bold concepts, I can see them clear. Why not? Okay. I will say that I've said this before. I don't like italics. Okay. So I sometimes I don't know if I'm 301, 302, but I don't like italics. So you don't have to italicize really anything unless you really think it's part of the form. Anything great, go ahead. All right. So let's go into form. I mean, so content again is it should be thorough. It should really, you know, it's like, oh, I matched up the sample exactly in length, so I know I'm going to get all the points. No, you're not. All right. And, you know, I understand it's vague. I don't have a rubric to decide every little thing. I don't do that. I won't do that. I stand behind it. Okay. Because all a rubric does is gives you a checklist to an assignment. I checked it all off, checked it all off. No, we don't get anywhere in this world with that kind of thing. Okay. Do you think that the advancements that we make in our daily lives, however small, however large, are done because it's already been done? No, that's what makes them new and pushing forward. We're not just checking off checklist things of what we need to do to function at a sustenance level. We want to continue to go beyond. Okay. Well, I never recycled before, so why should I start now? What does that sound like? Doesn't sound good, right? Okay, so let's talk about Easter egg number 2 right away. Formatting is always a consideration. All right. And it is because it's a consideration. If you're texting me, okay, I'm not dealing with this. I mean, I don't care. I don't care what the grammar and spelling is. You know, I'll get it. If it's on Twitter, I don't care. I mean, I've had, you know, people I wanted to date or something. And, oh, I don't want to write to you because you're teach at university and you're going to correct my spelling. I'm not going to do that. Okay. It's a consideration, whatever level it's at. Okay. So let's move through the, texting, emails. Let's go to discussion board. I'm very forgiving on the discussion boards as well. Yes, I like to see good spelling, good grammar. I don't expect paragraph indents because they're very difficult to accomplish in the discussion board text. I'm not worried about how formatting happens there, but I do not like one single giant paragraph. Again, you're not taking into consideration the reader or the flow of your writing. There is no way on earth that you could have a singular paragraph responding to 3 or 4 different prompts and not have 3 or 4 different paragraphs. And by paragraphs in a discussion board, I mean just skip a line. It lets the reader know where they can take a breath. I'm just not looking at this. It's just if you rattle it down, submit it, it's like, I don't care who's reading this. I'm doing what I do. No, part of your responsibility in writing anything is to make sure that you're considering the format of it and that it's appropriate in the venue that you are in. Okay. So let's talk about the maps paper and other major papers. Okay. The running head. If you really want to get fancy about it, yes, APA, you leave running head up there with semicolon, then you put your name in there or something. Okay, and then subsequent pages, you take out the word running head or whatever. It might do that automatically, but I'm not worried about the words running head. I'm just worried. I just want you to have a running head with your name. I don't need multiple lines of it. I'd like to see it in Times New Roman 12, the same as the entire paper. The entire paper should all be in black, the same black. Sometimes if you're copying and pasting, doing this and that, you're going to end up with a different kind of black or very faded gray background. Notice that. Don't let that go for your paper. Retype it, everything word for word if you have to. Highlight the whole paper and then click on your black to make sure it's all the same color. It's appropriate formatting. Those are simple things, okay? I don't need a cover page. I don't need an abstract. I don't need, like I said, I don't need anything but your name, okay? I know the date. I know what it is because you're going to put in like maps 1 and you're going to put discipline 1 and whatever you're going to put in there. And, I'm going to see that, okay? Um, so I modified the sample because I did have both of them on one paper. We used to do it that way. Now I have 2 separate papers. Just know this is always done as one single assignment, okay? So I'm not trying to double up on you. It's always been one, but it's always confused people of, well, how do I have to do 2 works cited lists or just one at the bottom? And how, I just say, let's make 2 papers out of it, okay? All right, so I would like you to do this. I'd like you to try not to use I, me, or my. Try not to, because the best academic writing will never feature the writer. If you're in my 302, you don't get to use I, me, my in your major papers. It's a challenge for some, but once they get it, piece of cake. All you got to do is think back to high school or a history textbook and think about how you read there about the Civil War. And, the Civil War was fought in 1861, and then in 1863 was this. It didn't say, I always wanted to write about the Civil War. So the following is my chapter on the Civil War in this history text. And I think I'm going to do this. You don't hear, because you don't care about the author, right? You just want to just learn about Civil War. Same with academic papers. When you're writing them, use third person. Try to stay away. So even though I understand I don't emphasize that or require it in this course, I still kind of bristle when I get kind of step back when I see I'm doing this. I know what you're doing. I know what you want. I know what you like. I know. Okay. It's all yours. You're not telling me you breathe in and out every day. So you don't need to tell me this other stuff. I know. Okay. Just write about the topic. Okay. Stay in third person. It's a good challenge and it's a good habit as you step up your game in writing at a higher level. Okay. All right. Also, don't give me any color. I don't want any coloring highlights, any color letters, and people really don't do that. But I just want to remind you on that. Okay, in-text citations in APA and everything, they always come before the final punctuation. Okay. They do not come after the punctuation. If you have a quote or a sentence, and then you put a period, then you put parentheses and the author's name and start your next sentence, you're essentially starting that sentence with a citation, which is wrong. Citations come at the end of sentences before the punctuation. Okay, it's very important. So if you have a quote and then you have the close quote marks, and I'll say everything very specifically: close quote marks, space, opening parentheses, author's last name, comma, space, year, close parentheses, punctuation, period. Okay? Don't forget your spaces in there. Nothing should be jammed up. If there's more than one author's name, you use an ampersand between the last two names. You don't use comma, you don't use the word and. So for two or more on the last two, you use an ampersand. If you don't know what it is, look it up, okay? All right. You put the year in there. APA requires the year. If you have the page numbers, you can do that, but the year is critical. All right. Okay. In-text citations before the punctuation, not afterwards. All right. All your in-text citations need to match citations in your works cited list. Okay. So whatever's on the bottom in the works cited list should appear in the piece. You can call it a works cited list, please. I appreciate that. That's my favorite. I don't need bibliography or bibliography page or references. Reference is my second choice, but works cited is fine. Works cited, capitalize both. Starts on the first blank page after the writing. If your writing ends in the second line, you still skip to the next page. If it ends in the middle of the paper, you skip to the next page. That's where you start your works cited list. Okay, works cited list now, again, has to match everybody on top, but it's alphabetical. You don't put it in the order that you use it. You put it alphabetical in the works cited list. Alphabetical by last name, okay? And you follow APA formatting. I told you go to Purdue OWL. That's a great source. It'll tell you how to cite anything, okay? If you just look. That's how I learned. Nobody told me, and I waited till I was like 55 before I had to do that. You can do it. If I could do it, you can do it. Okay. It's just how you do it. It's just how you put it together. Now, you also format it in hanging paragraph form. If you don't know what a hanging paragraph form is, look it up. It's basically where the top line goes to the left margin and any subsequent line is indented. There's an easy way to do it. You right click and highlight your whole page. You right click, there's a section that says paragraph, you click on it, there's another thing, it's a drop down and it'll say hanging, you click on that and everything will go to hanging paragraphs. Look it up, okay? I'm sure there's a 2-minute video on how to do it. It's a piece of cake. Once you know how, you're never gonna deal with it, right? It's double line spaced. There are no line gaps between because I can tell where one ends and one starts because of the indentedness of it, okay? Should include links if you got them. And I don't want videos. Don't use videos. Don't source videos. Don't cite videos. It's not an academic source to be used in this class. Okay. There are exceptions and ways and when things are opened up, but your job in this course is to demonstrate and experience academic rigor. To do that does not mean to take the path of least resistance and use the textbook and videos and Wikipedia. It means to utilize the sources that are important in your field, that are recognized and peer reviewed, okay? There you go on that. I think that's about it. Again, those two are due on Sunday. I realize that's Valentine's Day, and I apologize for that, but as it is with the online course, we don't recognize President's Day, we don't recognize Martin Luther King Day. I mean, because we don't have a set class time, it's up to you. That just happens to be the due date, right? So keep sending me your questions. I hope I've been answering them. And I know I talked to some people about talking about things on the video that would help you out. Let's see, what else do I have here? Just going to take a quick look to see if there's anything that I'm missing about we talked about the formatting, talked about the subfields. Again, I think my emphasis is that you take it your own way, you make it your own. I'd love to be able to say, can I use your paper as a sample? Because it's so much better than this sample. Okay, I expect this sample to be termed almost below average by the time I get to the samples I would like to see. Okay, I could write one myself, but it just doesn't have the same gusto as using a sample from somebody. Again, concepts, you can bold them. I don't have a problem with that. Theories, they should end in theory, unless there's some reason it doesn't. Almost every single theory in a field ends in theory. Okay, uh, think about that. Think closely about your subfields, your concepts, your theories, etc. That had one yawn that it had to that you don't you know overlap them. Don't use concepts that are actually subfields. Okay, don't use theories that are actually that are actually concept. You just make sure you are clear on that. There's so many different sources out here to figure that out. And again, I don't mind if you look in Google, if you snoop around there and do all kinds of things, as long as you understand that what you see there needs to be confirmed again by another source. Okay. One of my colleagues the other day sent me this video about this floating car that was designed by Korean VW or something. It's like, I think we finally got a grip on solving the energy problem. And it was a whole video and everything. And the first thing I do is like, this is fake as a $6 bill. I mean, I go online and I Google it, and I'm like, and it comes up and it's a Snopes or whatever, but it's a concept vehicle. It's animated kind of. You can't really tell because it's a CGI stuff, but it's not real yet. It's a concept. And again, everything starts with a concept. Okay. Everything you see started with an idea. All right. Everything that's, I mean, not the plants or anything, but it's an idea. I do have plants. See, I have plants and I have plants here and I have plants out here. I have plants. Oh, that's really a waste of time. But, I think it was Einstein said that nothing happens until something moves. Think of that as well. Something. Really drill it down. And everything that we have started with an idea. Okay, so the concept car is a good idea, but it's not there yet. Okay, it's like cold fusion. It's like creating more energy through less energy, and we haven't figured out those things yet. We will though. Okay, I'm sure electricity might have been some kind of concept that very bizarre for some people. Okay, so that's it for me on 32 minutes. I apologize. Um, so I'll tell you what. We did do it. Easter egg number three is let's just go with forks up. I just want to be sure I have something there. Easter egg three is forks up. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your patience. Send me your questions, comments, concerns. My doctor visit went decent. I still got to wait till like Wednesday, Tuesday to get results for sure. But I'm finally kind of relieved that it wasn't nothing that like they were going to keep me there for. So forks up. Peace.